Welcome to Donnybrook Next Up as we begin this holiday weekend. Ray Hartmann, I'm Wendy Wiese. Thank you so much for joining us. And our guest tonight really needs no introduction. He is Joe Edwards. He is a businessman, of course, and the developer and the genius behind the Delmar Loop. Joe, welcome.
I'm pleased to be here.
We're happy to have you. And before we get started with the loss of Tina Turner, you have been interviewed by everybody because you were one of the few who really were able to see her very early in her career here.
Yeah, it was spectacular. When I was a teenager, my friends and I would go out way south on Lindbergh Boulevard to a place called Sunset, where there was a pool that didn't have any water in it, but they were just rehearsing. Ike and Tina Turner were rehearsing their act before they went national and international. And for 50 cents, we could go there every Saturday night and watch this incredible duo and the rest of the band, the Ikettes and all too, just, you know, craft everything, which became an international phenomenon. It was magical. It was just great.
Could you tell? I mean, could you just tell instinctively that you were watching something that was going to be very special?
I could tell that they were special beyond belief. You never know. You can't predict if they're going to be famous, because there are a lot of great people that never became famous. But Ike would just stand there, dun, 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 and then Tina would go like, oh, like that, and just it was just phenomenal, phenomenal. They revved us up every time we saw them. And then I re-met her at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony at the Waldorf Astoria in New York City when she was inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And that was the picture I have of Tina and me at Blueberry Hill on the wall was taken at that ceremony. Mm-hmm. What a glorious entertainer. James Brown was the hardest working man in show business, and Tina Turner was, in my opinion, the hardest working woman in show business.
For sure.
Great shows.
And you've met a couple people. If anybody's been in Blueberry Hill, you got some memorabilia or two. And obviously, you were very close with Chuck Berry. What is it about St. Louis? What is it about St. Louis's musical heritage? Or what is it about St. Louis that we have this I think, pretty outstanding heritage?
It's as good as any city in the country. I think the people that have come out of St. Louis that have affected our culture on a national level, unparalleled. Maybe some of the eastern cities like New York, Philly, and Boston have other people in science and all that too, but in St. Louis, my thought is that not only was there the east to west migration, but there was the whole south to north migration, where people of all backgrounds, cultures, and all were just mixing it up literarily wise and musically. And the result was an explosion of creativity, which continues to this day. It's unbelievable. We don't have that catchphrase like Memphis soul, New Orleans jazz, Chicago blues. St. Louis has all those. Mm-hmm. So we never capitalized on, we have all those forms of music and jazz and ragtime and all too. So we'll do a better PR job.
You have been in the headlines really since you had this vision for the Delmar Loop recently, just recently with your the sale of some buildings to Washington University. Can you share a little bit about that with us and the fact that you and Washington University are committed to those small business owners in the Loop right now?
Definitely. It's a great symbiotic relationship we've had for years. I mean, in fact, the Loop wouldn't even be here if they physically had not had their campus where it was. No matter what I did or other people did, the decline was happening so rapidly in the 1960s and even in the early 70s. So that was great. But then the fact that they realized, oh my gosh, we have our college street here, and like Yale has something in Connecticut and so on has so on. So, but they really are strong supporters of St. Louis and science and medical science and the Delmar Loop. And I'm thrilled to have transferred some properties to them. And they'll carry it on. They'll carry on these small businesses because that helps them attract faculty, research scientists, and students coming in, undergrads and grads. So I respect them a whole lot for what they can do, and they'll be here for hundreds of years. I might be here another 10 or 20, but they'll be here for long after that.
I was just going to say, are you slow? I mean, is this a sign that you're, I mean, you haven't been doing this that long. It just goes back to 72, Blueberry Hill.
That's a while.
And you kind of paved the way there. But are you, is this an indication that you're kind of starting to think about, well, an exit strategy, or are you still involved and pumped up, whatever? You've got the pageant and the pinup bowl, you know, on and on and on, the hotel. Obviously Blueberry Hill. What are you slowing down? Or you?
I probably should, but I'm not.
Okay.
I think I'm still doing the St. Louis Walk of Fame. We just inducted Andy Cohen, and 2 other great people are going to be inducted in June, and which I can announce if you want.
Yeah, tell us.
Okay. Harry Weber, the greatest in-motion sculptor in the world today, in my opinion, and many others, because he got voted in. He not only has sculptures down at Busch Stadium of Cardinal players and the Chuck Berry statue in the Loop, but he has all sorts of statues around the country and other countries. And he's getting inducted in June. And the Spinks brothers, Leon and Michael Spinks, 2 incredible brothers who were giants in the boxing field.
Heavyweight champion.
Yeah, both became
both
were the first brothers ever to win gold medals in boxing, and now, and then the first brothers, you know, heavyweight champs. And that's going to be so cool. Michael's flying in town. Leon has passed and all, but Michael's flying in town for it.
That's interesting.
And it's going to be pretty cool in June. So keep your calendars open. One of them is on June 21st. The other one is June 26th, I think. The pandemic slowed the induction ceremonies up a little bit, but now we're back open for welcoming great St. Louisans.
You have been Mr. Good Vibrations for such a long time in St. Louis, and we obviously have to get into the trolley. Your vision to connect the Delmar Loop to the History Museum didn't go as planned, and my question to you, Joe, is we have all read, I mean, oceans of ink have been spilled on the trolley, and we can get into some of the nuts and bolts, but what has it meant to you, the struggle and all of the press? What has it meant to you personally? Has it changed you, or has it changed your verve and love and desire and commitment to continue to think of new things out of the box?
It hasn't. I think we in St. Louis need to be more positive than sometimes a handful of people can try to lead us the wrong direction. No, I love St. Louis and I love the Delmar Loop, and I still like the trolley project immensely. It's one of those things that if it had when it first started, everybody was in favor of it, and then because the company in a different state, they fixed up the trolley cars beautifully. I mean, here's a replica.
You just happen to have one.
I just happen to have one in my back pocket. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, people love riding on streetcars. When you go to New Orleans or San Francisco or Kansas City, they're expanding theirs already. That's what people like. They just love it. And if the company in this other state who fix up the trolleys physically beautifully, I mean, people, when they see the wooden seats and the paint jobs outside, they'll love it. But mechanically, they failed us. And it's really sad because that started the downward momentum of, oh, well, it's not going to work. Oh. And it prevented us from doing cooperative things with the places in Forest Park, the great attraction in Forest Park, whether it's the zoo or the Science Center, the Art Museum, Missouri Historical Society. Without it operating at normal times, you really couldn't guarantee people to do it. Now it's running free, and you can connect with the circulator in Forest Park and see any of those great attractions. And now with the new studies saying that there are 15 million people that now go to Forest Park attractions, it's the time for St. Louis to say, let's make it work. Let's just fine tune it. And now that Bi-State has taken over the operations, which I'm very grateful for, they have the mechanical ability to make sure they actually run and operate. So,
do you have any? You're not somebody that looks back much and ever second guesses, and that's, I think, a good thing. But Do you ever think maybe if it had gone to the West End, people talk about that, and the people, and there are a fair number of people that are critical. Trust me, as somebody that's sort of been a defender of the project, I got the scars to show for it. And I always remind people that it was a competition that St. Louis won, what, about 6 out of 65 cities or something to get it,
Yeah, you have
and
a
to
good
get the
memory.
funds. And people, it's not just a few people, though, that are cynical about it. And do you ever think, obviously there were the design issues and construction delays and all that. Do you ever wish it had just gone to the West End, for example, or... I mean, some people say Clayton, but it needed to go to the city, right? It had to connect the county. Part of the deal was it had to involve the city and county across the line.
And it's not a bad starting route. I mean, my goal has always been to have this one hopefully succeed and then expand it with more funding in the future. And all the funding wasn't taxpayer money. Everybody goes, oh, it's taxpayer. You know, a lot of us put in a lot of money ourselves. I gave up a ton of tax abatements that I had on various buildings in order to get this federal grant of $25 million to help build this project. And I paid on that year after year still all that time. So it's not, we're not taking advantage of anybody, we're just putting into it. But the goal is to have it expand. Cities that have good transit, it helps their populations succeed. And people that live, it's not just older adults that could live 2 or 3 blocks away and not have the cost of a car, the car insurance, the gasoline prices and all. Young people love clean electric transit and are willing to live 3 or 4 blocks on each side. So to help develop Delmar and Skinker to Bolivar, this was a major factor. And some of the big projects that have come into those streets, including the great Maxine Clark's Delmar Divine project, one of the reasons that she invested in that heavily, and Bob Fox, because the trolley was going to be close enough that all these nonprofits could get public transit, get to the Metrolink, and come in and out of St. Louis. We can expand it from here. This is just the beginning.
When it comes to those federal matching funds or the grants, aren't we the federal government, though, Joe? I mean, I think, people have made that point time and time again, that this is still ultimately funded by taxpayers.
Well, and that taxpayer-funded money could have gone to any number of other states,
right,
or St. Louis. And usually, when Kansas City got all their stuff, it's just, and their own local people put tons into this thing to make them successful. They're expanding it 2 different routes already. New Orleans knew how great that route that most of us have probably been on out to St. Charles Avenue to the Garden District. That's been there over 100 years, and the neighborhood never went up or down on each side. The rest of New Orleans, went up and down. Transit is really key, and that's part of the goal of this, to anchor St. Louis's corridor and then expand for that reason.
Let's talk about the future of the loop. And of course, by the way, that argument, I got pounded with it, and about the other cities. But anyway, now let's talk. I don't mean to get off the subject. We kind of do, actually. Retail is really challenged right now because of the internet, and
the pandemic.
The pandemic, but the digital age is not over and behind us at all. And what do you see? What is your vision for the loop? 5, 10, 20 years out in terms of the kinds of things you want to see it. What do you see develop, or is it just more of the same? I mean, talk about that, because it is a battle everywhere, certainly not just in St. Louis, to make the kind of old bricks and mortar businesses work.
Well, they can work in a livable, walkable community, and that's what the Delmar Loop is. You can live there and not have cars out and still enjoy every aspect of it. The fact that Washington University built a new building with a grocery store was key. The fact that there is now a big pharmacy at the corner of Skinker and Delmar, that's key. All the amenities a good neighborhood needs to have it be livable and walkable and sustainable, those big things are in place right now. And filling in the gaps in the streetscape, the pedestrian gaps, like I'm doing with Magic Mini Golf, that was a vacant lot. And now, even during construction, it made the loop safer just during construction, because somebody couldn't grab a person, run to the alley and go either way. And and the police know which way and all that. Now they have to stay on Delmar and they get caught. So it's become from one of the not most safe streets in the 1970s and 60s to be one of the safest city streets in the Midwest. And it's amazing. I almost went out of business 3 times in the first 2 years when I opened Blueberry Hill, mainly because I banned 2/3 of the customers for life. I just was not going to put up with the rude people, the mean people, the drug dealers, and all that. And they were the ones, you know, drinking the most and eating the most sandwiches and all. But it set a tone for the Loop. And I think if we all bond together and just stand up for good people and friendly people, nice people, we'll be fine.
Young people probably wouldn't realize how scary Grand Center, Delmar, and all of those areas were back in the late 60s and 70s. And my dad was doing some graduate work at St. Louis University. And I just remember coming down here with my mom, and it was always like, oh, you got to be careful, you know. Could you speak to the future in terms of what you're hearing about the recent crime summit, the commitment on the part of the mayor to fight crime? Because right now, how does it stack up to other periods of high crime that you recall as somebody who's been in business and trying to keep the doors open?
Well, I think the mayor and other people can do all these good things, which is really critical because they have the financial power to delegate funds to different things. But it also depends on the citizens and the businesses to stand up the right way too, and to call the police. If you see a crime happen, you know, call and identify that person or give them any help they can get. The police could solve so many more crimes if we as citizens would stand up and address that and call them. That'd be great. And the other thing is just being sensible about neighborhoods in general, just having good shops, supporting the good shops and supporting the various businesses that are small owner-operated places. I rent to so many people, I never look at their financial statement even, and sometimes they succeed, and 5 out of 6 times they don't. But the ones that succeed, they're there for years and years. I mean, Renouche is a restaurant in the Delmar Loop. He came to America with just almost zero money. And I gave him a chance where he couldn't get a chance anywhere else. He's very successful. Every month when he writes his rent check on the envelope, he says, thank you. How great is that? Those are the kinds of people that America, you know, can need and support and want.
Well, full disclosure, I was blessed that you didn't ask for my financial statement in 1995 when I moved the Riverfront Times offices from the Shell Building downtown to the Tivoli Theater, which you since sold. And we were very proud to be part of that. And you were the best landlord. That said, there was a tremendous amount of incoming for me for the decision to go from the city to the county. And I always just tell people, well, if you remove the signs, take a drive out Delmar from wherever in the city, from here near us, from Grand, go out Delmar, and if you didn't have a sign, tell me where the city starts and the county ends. The city ends and the county starts. You can't do it. Most people would go way past the Lions Gate, that's for sure. What do you've been doing this a long time, like I have. Do you think there's any hope to get over the city-county split? That as cheerful as you are, there's no denying it. There's also no denying the impact of St. Louis's infamy about crime right now on businesses like yours. What can be done about that? I mean, I don't want to, I love the fact that you're cheerful about it, but what can be done about the city-county split in terms of people's minds and also the crime problem image that we have?
I think the state of Missouri needs to change the statutes so things can cross county-city borders. It's crazy that we have to have a special business district in the U-City part of the Loop, for example, and a CID, a community improvement district, in the city part, and not just have them be one. So every project has to go through all these sequence of hearings and everything else. When I did the St. Louis Walk of Fame, initially in 1988 I started it, and so I had to go before U-City and various committees and all. Then the same with the county in St. Louis County. And when I expanded it into the city of St. Louis, same thing. So I'm going through 3 hearings on every level, plan commission, so-and-so, blah, blah, blah. That just slows things up. There's no reason to not have some of these nonprofit or semi-political organizations cross county lines. That would just ease a lot of it around the state, not just in
And you're
St.
not
Louis.
talking necessarily a merger, just easing it.
No, just ease that statute. There's no reason to, I don't know why it ever started, really. But that's the reality of it. And then working together. We work together in the Loop so well in general that, you know, it's in crossing that artificial city-county border that I think, you know, so far we're getting there.
Why did you sell the Tivoli?
The 2 tenants in the building had been there over 10 years each. And one of them was, you know, this really good web company that had the upper 2 floors, and the other was a church on the first 2 floors. And they both approached me and said, you know, we'd love to buy this, because the church then could do their service a little bit later and still show movies and all. And then the web company, great people, just, you know, thought we could draw in more people, really work hard. So that's why I didn't, they sought me out. I didn't seek them out. So that's how that happened in a nutshell.
You brought props tonight. You had the trolley, and you brought this. I didn't know why you brought it. This is, I was going to just read here, catch up on Archie's, which I haven't read lately. This is from 1989, you said? And what's rather novel about this collector's issue of is that it features you and Blueberry Hill. I don't know if we can see that here. Blueberry Hill down here on the left. And then I'm probably making our camera people not happy moving around. And then there's you on the upper
Corner.
Corner. That's obviously something you're very proud of. Talk about how Blueberry Hill, you know, anyone that hasn't had the privilege of being in Blueberry Hill could see a couple of 2 or 3 comic book icons and a Howdy Doody and 100 other things. Excuse me, thousands of other artifacts. Talk about this one and what it means and the story about it.
Well, it was fun. The grandson of the founder of Archie Comics was in St. Louis back then in '89 and '90, doing a tour of all the TV stations, a Don't Drink and Drive tour, and also promoting Archie Comics, obviously. So after the first 2 out of the 3 at that time main stations, they said, "Oh, have you been to Blueberry Hill?" Each time, and they said, "No, I don't know." So between the 2nd and 3rd, he came to Blueberry Hill. And he saw a lunchbox in my collection, an Archie's lunchbox. And he, gosh, we don't have that in our archives in New York. Would you sell it? I mean, I trade you something for it. And I said, no, I really don't, you know, barter and stuff, because I would spend too much of my time doing that. And on and on. He was just crushed. He offered me all sorts of stuff. And then I just, after about an hour and a half, I just gave it to him. He wasn't asking. He didn't think he was going to get it then. But I just said, if anybody that deserves something out of my collection, it's him. And so I did. And 6 months later, I get a thing in the mail to sign a release for my, you know, picture type of thing, and Blueberry Hill. And I thought, oh, they'll put us in the background or something. But then they did a 6-page story. Amazing. I got to meet Archie and Jughead.
Did you?
It can only happen in a parallel universe of comic books. Wow.
You have had so many seismic moments at Blueberry Hill. Is there one that just stands out immediately, Joe? You know, that when people say, was there that moment that transcended all the other moments?
There's so many of those moments, it's hard to pick out one. I mean, Chuck Berry performing 209 concerts where people came from all around the world to see him in that intimate setting was just magnificent. And what he gave his fans was just, you know, on stage was just amazing. But then, you know, having lunch with Robert Duvall, one of the greatest actors of all time, I spent 4 hours with him. Having the Chief Justice, John Roberts, have dinner at Blueberry Hill. It's not just musicians, and all the people that just come in unannounced that are musicians or, you know, elected officials and all. And all I try to do is create places where people can enjoy themselves, put their troubles behind them for a couple of hours, whether it's Blueberry Hill or Pinup Bowl or the pageant, all, and in the future, the Magic Mini Golf. And I love creating places where you don't have to be good at the sport to enjoy it.
Right.
You don't have to be good at darts to enjoy darts. It's a great social sport. Same way with bowling. You know, you can get gutter ball, and all of a sudden, woo, I got 5 pins. All your friends go, ah. And so I'm creating this place with 18 holes of indoor miniature golf, 2 lanes of shuffleboard where families of all ages can get together, date night, business groups, anything, and just enjoy life for a little while, put their troubles behind.
The people who, as we said in the outset, who have been fans of yours for a long time, they're cynical about this trolley, Joe, so look into that camera and tell them when you talk about the extension, talk to them about it. Tell them to sell them on it.
Well, it makes sense down the road. Where the funding will come from, that's a different story. But the good news is that the funding to support the trolley in perpetuity is almost there. The income from the sales tax is approaching pre-pandemic times, and with the new construction on de Bolivar and the Delmar Divine and other businesses coming in, and Magic Mini Golf for that matter, it'll break even, and then we'll have the ability to expand it. St. Louis will have the ability to expand it.
Thank you for being here. We're getting the sign that we're out of time, which is a good thing because I was going to ask you who bought John Roberts lunch. But I won't do that now because we're out of that. So I'll let our provocateur here take us out.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you very much for being here. And it is the beginning of the summer season. And remember what the Memorial Day holiday is all about. Thank you, Joe Edwards, developer of the Delmar Loop. Thank all of you for watching 9 PBS. Have a great weekend. Good night.
Donnybrook is made possible by the support of the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation and the members of 9 PBS.